be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been informed that you have a verdict. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are you the correct person?
I am.
Could you please read your verdict?
Individually?
Sure.
Okay. On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3 as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Thank you, Forewoman. You can be seated. And I'm going to ask Ms. Williams to hold the jury.
Juror in seat number 1, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Juror in seat number 2, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 3, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 5, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 6, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 7, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 11, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 12, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 13, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 14, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 16, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that this is one of the hardest things we've ever done. I'm going to ask you to return to the jury room. The 2 remaining alternates are also going to join you, and I'll be with you in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
All right, you may be seated. Time as we go. And considering April 9th at 9 o'clock in the morning for sentencing in fact.
That should be fine, Judge. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
April 9th at 9 o'clock is fine. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask everyone to remain seated while the defendant is taken out of the courtroom.
All rise. You may be seated.
Okay, there you go. You watch the prosecution team walk out of the courtroom there. First, Jennifer Crumbley walked out of the courtroom. This is a live look now in the hallway outside of courtroom 202. And The prosecution team is expected to make a statement. We will have that for you. This was a big win for this district attorney who went out on a limb and really made history in going after the parents of a school shooter, and at the end of the day, the jury agreed with this prosecution, finding Jennifer Crumbley guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Still with us in studio, the dynamic duo, which will be together later today. Judge Ashley Wilcott and Michael Ayala, Marie Pereira also with us in New York. Reactions from both of you. You first, Judge.
Yeah, obviously this jury found that when you have a child with mental health issues and you provide them a gun, they found that there was gross negligence and it was foreseeable. That's what they had to find. I think they did their job. That was their decision. I have to respect. That's the verdict.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I wrote the same thing down. What does this mean for parents across the country? Don't ignore your child if they have some mental health issues or expressing some issues. It's not a joke, it's real. And then don't buy them a gun at that point. And if you do buy a gun, because everyone has a right to have one, lock it up properly.
And search that backpack. That was the one thing that troubled me. She did not look in his backpack knowing all those things. She just left the school.
Yeah.
Make sure he didn't have a gun, so that part sticks with me.
Marie Pereira, your reaction.
I think she did herself in by not fully taking any responsibility for what happened. I think that had a lot to do with it, accountability. And I think her denying his mental illness really enraged the jurors. And that's what happened. I think if she showed some type of sympathy, some type of willingness to accept that, you know what, I should have seen it and I didn't see it. And I'm sorry for that. She never did that. And I think that's what swayed them towards a conviction. Her lack of willingness to take responsibility for anything that happened.
April 9th is the sentencing date. This charge of involuntary manslaughter carries with it a potential sentence of 15 years per count. The likelihood that these will be served consecutively compared to on top of each other, you would think they have to be consecutive, correct, Michael? And when you look ahead here, and
it seems to flow from the same act, obviously. And usually when they do that, you get the concurrent sentence. So I think that might be the way it goes in this instance, although there is the specter that to honor each victim, you do run them consecutively. But I think that has been taken care of already with the sentencing of Ethan Crumbley to life in prison without the possibility of parole, justice there, and another level of justice here. But I think justice is probably concurrent.
Concurrent, yes. So they would be served at the same time, Judge, meaning that you've got now, and she's not going to be sentenced to 15.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
She's done a couple years, so we're talking about her likely serving, what, 3, 5?
That's what I would anticipate, and I just have to say, Michael reads off my notes, Ted. When I have to co-anchor with him, he looks at my notes, because I'm the one that said, when you have victims, but I still stand by that. I think there's a potential that the judge is going to say to honor the 4 victims, because it's 4 guilties to involuntary manslaughter. She may say, I'm going to do them consecutive, but I think regardless of consecutive or concurrent, it is not going to be more than, in my mind, 15 years at the most. But I think it'll be less total. Yeah. But I think it'll be closer to, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe?
Yeah, I think that sounds fair.
Is this a chilling effect, Marie Pereira, that, and let's face it, this is an elected DA that wanted to make a statement. She went out on a limb and brought these charges. And at the end of the day, did the verdict really matter? This case got so much attention. I would think message sent, regardless of the verdict, but now it's sent with an exclamation point that you better look out for your kids, especially if you detect anything going downhill in this day and age.
I think the verdict puts a period at the end. Mind your children. Look at them, talk to them, see how they're doing, and don't ignore the obvious signs like she did. I think it sends a message. Parents are responsible to take care of their children. Mind your children.
James Crumbley will be tried. March 5th is his trial date with jury selection. What does that look like? Is it just a repeat here, or if you're representing him, Michael, what did you learn here that might give you an advantage?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, it's a question I've had throughout this, is do juries hold mothers more responsible for what's going on with their children than fathers, right? Do they hold them to a higher standard? Not even consciously, but the fact that she was out having affairs, we're probably going to hear that he was out having affairs as well, and probably not a guy, at least according to her testimony, that was reliable, wasn't necessarily taking care of the family, bearing part of the responsibility of her not paying as much attention because she had to go out and work because he couldn't provide for the family. So again, I think there are issues in his trial that are different, but I think it's going to look very much the same. And also you're going to have this issue with the gun and who bought the gun and who stored the gun and who was responsible for that. It seemed to be more in his province and conversations he was having with his son. So I think it'll be a little different, but a lot the same.
Yeah, his name was the owner on the gun. He was the one that actually purchased it. And she said it was up to James to deal with the gun at the house, sort of putting the blame on him. It'll be interesting to see if he takes the stand, etc. Let's head out to Michigan now. Legal correspondent extraordinaire Kelly Craft is with us. She's been in the courtroom and has been covering this case throughout. She was there during this this verdict. Kelly, set the table for us. I can only imagine what that courtroom felt like.
So intense, Ted. Good afternoon. So, a verdict, obviously, as you've been reporting, has been reached in this case that really has rocked this entire community. So about 1:15, we got word here inside the courthouse that they had reached a verdict. Now, keep in mind, they began deliberating yesterday, 9:59 a.m. So it went all day yesterday and then into today. We weren't certain that they were going to reach a verdict today, but they did. And about 15 minutes after they announced that there was a verdict, Jennifer Crumbley was then brought into the courtroom. Very stoic, just talking with her defense counsel, awaiting the verdict. I overheard Shannon Smith say to her client, just to remain calm, no matter what happens, just remain calm. And then they read the verdict, guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. I was watching Jennifer Crumbley. She remained calm. Her head did go down. When the jury was polled to make certain that it was a unanimous verdict, I did notice the floor person, when she was walking out, take a look over toward defense counsel table, and she smiled in a way. I had been watching this particular juror throughout the trial, seeing her reactions to a lot of the things that was said. This is somebody in particular that I had mentioned that I had noticed taking a lot of notes throughout the trial and some different reactions. But yes, that's the verdict here. And right now, what's happening inside, Jennifer Crumbley was taken away, and then and she's been in prison because she wasn't able to post bond. Her and James have been in prison on $500,000 cash bond each, so she hasn't been able to post bond. So she's been in prison, will return to prison, and then sentencing is going to be April 9th. I will say, after the verdict was read, I turned around. I had a little brief exchange with Mr. Schilling. He is the father of one of the victims in this case. He said he did not want to talk right now, but maybe at a later date. I also did get a statement, I can pull it up on my phone right now, from an attorney who is with the civil case. There's a civil case also pending in this trial, and he said this. I want to read it to you. He said, "I think that given his depressed condition when she texted her paramour that she thought he was going to do something stupid and then testify that she would do nothing differently, in hindsight, that sealed the decision. It showed that it was foreseeable to her and she had no remorse." And so, as we have heard throughout this entire trial, there's been all this information about her personal life. Cared more about horses. That was the prosecution's whole story. She cared more about horses, more about her affair. Cared more about all of these things besides her son. They showed pictures of a dirty home. And defense counsel tried to argue men aren't necessarily held to this kind of standard in a case like this. Obviously, that argument did not resonate with the jury. However, with the amount of time that it took for them to reach a verdict, you can tell that there was a struggle to reach this verdict. There was a lot of evidence to look through. Shannon Smith, defense counsel, had encouraged jurors to continue to look through all of the evidence. She brought out mountains of evidence and encouraged jurors to take a look at it, look at the text messages between Jennifer and James, and then reach your decision. So with the amount of time that it took jurors to reach this decision, they did give it a lot of thought. They really were analyzing the evidence, and this is the conclusion that they came to, Ted.
And again, James Crumbley is next. He will be on trial, and we'll see a version of what we've witnessed during this case. We understand, Kelly, that the state is going to hold some sort of media availability, or is that what you're hearing? Do we think that we'll hear from Shannon Smith on the defense side and prosecutors?
Well, Ted, there's a gag order in this case, and from our understanding, they are not going to be speaking until after James Crumbley's trial. Now, I will say right next to me, there's a bunch of media professionals standing here right next to me, awaiting something. It could be just the victims that are walking out from when they were the family members of the victims that were in a back room here, and so that could be possibly what they're looking for. But from our understanding, the prosecution and the defense is not able to comment on anything until after James Crumbley's trial. If I didn't mention this, I wanted to mention that after the verdict was read, the lead prosecutor in the case, Karen McDonald, walked over to the victims' families and hugged them and just shook their hands, and you heard her, along with all of the law enforcement that were there. They went up to the family members of the victims and people that had been in the gallery throughout this trial, saying, the family was telling them, thank you so much, thank you for everything that you have done for us, and they hugged. It was very emotional, really gut-wrenching to watch, because obviously they've lost so much.
Indeed. The community suffered so deeply because of this shooting. And we did watch that. We watched that as they filed out of the courtroom. It was moving indeed. Kelly Craft, thank you. You'll be with us throughout the day here on Court TV. We need a break as we hit the top of the hour. Guilty on all counts.